All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday with Kevin Luna. Really, with all of you, Divine Family. We're here in the Divine Family. This is for the Divine Family. And what we're doing is we're going to be just sharing transformation stories. It's not about me. This is going to be I'll share my story now. And then whoever out there, we have Nicole, Jules, Adrian. When you guys are available, or if you're available, you can share your story. If not, we can keep it simple, but this is going to be a place where we share our stories. Think about like by a campfire if you have a fire by you. If it's chilly, then you could light the fire. If it's not, think about being by a campfire. If you're getting eaten by mosquitoes, like Adrian, then you could imagine you're by a campfire getting eaten by mosquitoes. And so I'm gonna start with sharing my story, and then we just go around like a campfire, you could imagine. So we don't really need this thing. All right, so hello. Let me see. I could do my full screen. It doesn't really matter. How are you guys? Tonight we are here part of Wellness Wednesday. I'm gonna be sharing just my story. So I'm here in San Diego, and I was born and raised here, but I moved to Houston for 3 years, so I'm a little bit familiar with Texas. I know Adrian here is in Texas as well, and last night we were part of a hailstorm with Dulce, and she's in Texas there. And I was there for 3 years. That was the first time I moved away from home, and I was like total culture shock from California. I was definitely surprised by just everything and the way of living. Luckily, I was a little bit familiar with the big city. And I also lived in Los Angeles for 3 years and Kuwait in the Middle East for 2 years. While I was in Houston is when I developed really my most, I would say, sickness. I was the most sick. I ate the most terrible. I ate like a typical Houstonian. Most people that live there have they're a lot bigger. They're one of the most obese cities there is. There's lots of, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, lots of issues there. You have Texas, everyone's like, oh, everything's bigger in Texas, so they have huge portions. So imagine food that's already not so healthy and then much bigger portions, right? And then Houston's like, oh, well, we're the biggest city. So they're like, we're bigger than Texas. So Houston believes that they're bigger than Texas. So their portions were even bigger. And then you have all the fast food places on every corner because you have a big city. And that's one of the challenges or one of the issues with most big cities is fast food on every corner. And you have Tex-Mex, which is really just Mexican food with bigger portions. And then you have barbecue, all the barbecue, right? So you have all of the barbecue stuff. You have all of the mac and cheese, the ribs, all the barbecued stuff, and all this soul food, right? Which is all like the mac and cheese and the grits and like the all those places. And you could just rotate on that food and like always have something different or that food, right? And then also a lot of alcohol. That was a huge part of the lifestyle. I posted, I don't know how long ago it was, but a few pictures recently where like literally my fridge is like an old memory. My entire fridge, like you see, I don't know, I post pictures of my fridge sometimes as well, post pictures of our fridge. My entire fridge was beer and nothing but beer while I was living in Houston. And I was posting like a point of pride. Like I was proud of that, like for some reason. And so that was like the lifestyle was eating like that, drinking beer, and definitely not eating fruits and veggies and having smoothies or anything like that. Nothing for my gut health. And of course, if you live that type of lifestyle, you develop one of the diseases, one of the American diseases. And I developed a disease called ankylosing spondylitis. It's called autoimmune disease, and it's really weird name. It sounds like a dinosaur or something. And it basically, my spine was starting to fuse together and calcify. The inflammation was so painful and so extreme that my spine was starting to fuse together. My hips were starting to fuse together. I started experiencing symptoms and pain. I was in the hospital for hip pain one of the early symptoms when I was 18. I was experiencing gut health in my teens. So I was starting to experience like early symptoms of what most people start with developing autoimmune diseases, usually starting in their gut when they start to think back to it, and kind of trace it down. And for me, it goes to the hips, then the spine, then the neck, right? And it just starts to all fuse together. They said I was never going to work out again. I was going to need to be taken care of. And if you see people that have what I had, they're in a wheelchair and they need to be taken care of. And most of them commit suicide. And that's another thing that a lot of people end up doing with a lot of autoimmune diseases and a lot of these diseases, cancers, and a lot of these ones, a lot of people say that they just give up. Um, and so yeah, I'll get to that question. So what actually happened was my dad ended up committing suicide. He took his life, and that was my wake up call because he was the person that raised me. He was like my main family member and like the closest one I had, like the person that like I was always looked up to, wanted to make proud, like, all the things. And he was a good dad. It was a very big surprise too, because no one saw that coming. No one thought that was ever going to happen, right? And it was more like most people got along with him and he was a great person. And most people, saw that as a huge surprise for sure. Because sometimes you see someone that does that, you might see like many attempts or red flags or kind of things. You may look back and see like there were some signs, but like sometimes you see people's life and it could seem like that, right? When you look back. But anyways, but that was like my wake up call. I decided to change. I didn't know what I was gonna do. And I went back to the hospital. I originally when I went to the hospital, I was diagnosed when I was 25. That's how I knew. And they said the medication was $4,000 a month and I couldn't afford it. So it was 4 years later. I suffered like this every single night. I was feeling like I was in a car accident with a broken back every single night for like 4 years straight. And then I went back to the doctors again. They diagnosed the diagnosis. They do like a blood test, and I had like this gene. It's like HLB27 something like that. And they say that you have this genetic marker or whatever. And that's what they do with a lot of people with autoimmune disease as well, is they do a test and they often give you or tell you they have this genetic marker and recommend a medication oftentimes. And this medication is Humira. It's one of the most profitable ones there is. They make like the most money. And when I went back there, I started taking the medication because my insurance was better and they covered most of it. It was like really cheap. And that there's like a huge list of side effects on these medications, like hundreds and hundreds of side effects. But the purpose of the drug was to weaken the immune system. It weakened my immune system, and I got the flu, and it caused me to be incredibly sick. I was sick for 3 weeks straight. I couldn't get out of bed. I was like, I couldn't even talk. I couldn't even tell people what was wrong with me. I remember I would have to text people or write it down, like what I was saying to people, because my voice was so gone and I couldn't even get out of bed or go to work or anything like that. Someone, while I was really sick, recommended me to watch the documentary What the Health. And that was the first time I was paying attention and I was praying for anything to feel better. I was Googling. I didn't want to go back to the doctors at the time because I kind of felt like they caused that at the time. I was kind of like a little bit angry. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like this medication, like kind of thinking about the risk and not wanting to take it, and then getting sick and thinking like I was like, they told me there's only one option, and what's the point of going back at that time is what I thought. And so I watched this documentary, What the Health, which a lot of people have seen. It's talked about the food and the nutrition and all the different things, animal products, and just lots of stuff that I wasn't ever paying attention to, wasn't really listening to. Maybe I heard and just closed my mind. I wasn't really open-minded to it, but I was willing to change. And so then I went plant-based, and then I started learning more. I studied nutrition, And then I started feeling better. I lost a lot of weight, I had a lot of improvements. So I was encouraged to keep going forward. And I just learned so much about the industry. I did a lot of animal rights activism, filming inside slaughterhouses, doing all kinds of stuff for animal rights, and then creating a podcast where I learned I was doing kind of like this, sharing transformation stories. I learned and I did an interview with someone who reversed their Hashimoto's. And that's when I learned way more about fruits and juicing and superfoods and gut health and just so many more layers to just cutting out animal products, essentially, which is the most that I had focused on. I mean, there's a lot to learn there. And then I tried that and I said I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do the juicing. I bought everything. I bought everything online that she recommended. I bought Medical Medium's book, Goodbye Lupus. I was learning from lots of different healing protocols from people that were doing autoimmune, talking about autoimmune, and it was all in alignment with like raw and fruits and juicing. And I gave up. It was really hard in the beginning. I was like giving up. I would start and stop. I'm pretty sure a lot of people experience that sometimes, a lot of start and stop. And I believed in everything. I believed in all of it. And I believed I just needed like maybe I don't know what I thought at the time. Maybe I just needed more help. I just I just knew that I was trying and it was like really hard to stay consistent. Maybe it was like the environment that I was in, all kinds of things. But eventually I learned more about gut health and I learned about the Purium products. Eventually I was in the Middle East. I shipped that over to my mom at first. I shipped that over to California and I was like, this makes a lot of sense. We'll see. This looks really good. But we'll see. I don't know about that. And it took me a year after that before I actually took it serious. I was kind of like start and stop and start and stop. Um, I was like hard-headed, definitely. I was like, I didn't want to do any supplements or I didn't want to do anything like that. And I was like, no, I don't want to do any of that stuff. But eventually I was in Belize after the pandemic hit and I lost my job and I lost my fiance and I was more committed to I had a better environment. I had better people around me, kind of like people just actually like Nicole. Someone like Nicole, like I would say Alice is like Nicole, and then also people like Jules, really, really smart, just healthy people that like had done a lot of good work and they were all a lot of them were doing Purium, lots of different things, but lots of healing, yoga, breath work, all the things, and great environment. No distractions, no fast food on every corner. Like a lot of the cities I was living in, even when I was in the Middle East, there was still fast food, American fast food on every corner, which is crazy. And so, yeah, so then it was 3 days in, I started feeling better, like really way better. And I just stayed consistent and I just never stopped. And I ate so much more fruits and raw foods and just stayed consistent. It was really since the end of 2020, near the end of 2020, I stayed consistent now. So like 4 years, really super consistent, like nearly almost completely raw. Like many times where I don't like keep crazy track of things. Like I've just been like eating, let's say juicing, like Pyram's foods is juiced, right? So if I'm eating the greens, I eat juiced, like that'd be like, to me, juicing, right? Is the way I look at it is like this is a great replacement if I need to, right? For different situations that I was in. So many days like that, and pushing it to the limits and just yeah, just basically to answer your question, Nicole, when I went back to the doctors, they said that I don't have any symptoms at all, right? They do test on you on the symptoms. They say that I have it's the same genetic marker, right? But I say there's no symptoms, right? And when I first went in the very first time and I was saying, I'm experiencing these symptoms, this symptom, and this symptom, I think I might have this disease. I named the disease because I heard it on a radio ad. To this day, I've never heard a radio ad of this disease ever. But for some reason I heard it and I decided to go to the hospital, even though I really didn't want to. I was going to chiropractors and going to everything besides going to the doctors. I was really reluctant, didn't want to go to the doctors because my dad like made me anti-doctors just growing up. He was really always anti-doctors. And so that was just really just how it happened. And the biggest thing is that I was able to sleep through the night and not feeling like I was in a with a broken back and feeling like I was in a car accident. So even if the doctor said you still need to take this drug, you still have this gene, you still need to take this, I would say I don't need that because I'm not in pain anymore. Before I felt I need to do anything to end this pain, like anything, including most people end their life with this pain. That autoimmune disease is regarded as one of the most painful autoimmune diseases there is, like higher than fibromyalgia, which is known as one of the most painful, and like on the pain scale, almost as painful as childbirth. There's one girl who you might see some of her posts or online, autoimmune awareness for all. If you ever see that on Instagram or around there, she had the same autoimmune disease as me. She does a great job sharing. Like really, like every time she shares something, like yes, yes, like yes, like pretty much everything that you're saying. Like she would honestly be like, if she saw what Purium is, she'd be like, yes, like that is like everything that I'm sharing. It would help a lot of people. But anyways, that's my story. I know I went tiny bit longer because that's kind of what Wellness Wednesday is. A little bit longer if you need to. So anyone wants to share or add anything or any questions? Did I miss?
I just appreciate you sharing, Kevin, because even though heard bits and pieces of your story here and there over the last couple of months, it never ceases to amaze me what you overcame at such a young age. Because I remember myself at 25, and I was going through my own stuff too, but it wasn't whatever the spondylitis that I work in the medical field, and I will never ever be able to pronounce that correctly, and I'm not going to try today.
Yeah. I think
If
because
you
I
care to
had it and
say
I
it
had
one
to
more
tell
time,
people it so many times, I just memorized it over.
okay, so say it one more time.
I'll say it slow. Yeah, I guess I should
Yeah,
just say it I slow, just
no, you're
naturally.
good.
Ankylosing
Ankylosing
spondylitis.
spondylitis. Okay, so it's not spondylosis. My brain just goes losis.
No, yeah,
So
it sounds like that.
ankylosing spondylitis. Did I get it or did
Yeah,
I
that's
screw it
it.
up again?
No, that
Okay.
was it.
No, I appreciate you sharing your story, and I wanted to say that because um, it really is a story that a lot of conventional medical people are going to poo poo on because it's not following the, oh my gosh, this miracle blood pressure medication magically solved my problem. And I just have to take it every day for the rest of my life and it'll never be a thing again. But there's no changes to lifestyle, there's no changes to stress management, there's no incorporating joy into your life, which I am finding is massive for healing. There's no changing the thought patterns in your head, which research has shown that negative thought patterns in your brain develop what we call ruts, just like when you're traveling. So it's just like you have to create new ruts. And nobody talks about, oh, you have to do all of this work. They just want a magical pill that's going to fix everything. It's going to make me feel better, but I can still do all the stupid shit, pardon my language, that I've been doing before, and
Yeah,
it'll
keep
be just
drinking, keep
fine.
eating pizza, keep eating burgers,
Yep,
and
yep,
just
yep.
give me a shot. I wrote down every single day in my gratitude journal, I'm healing my back every single day
Mm-hmm.
for a year straight until like I did it as well.
One, of,
Like it
one of
was
the
like
biz,
it isn't just like this one
you have to
thing
change
where
your
Ethereum
mindset.
just helped, maintain it,
Yes.
you know?
Curium gave your body the physical nutrition that it needed in order for you to do the work mentally, emotionally, psychically, physically, spiritually to heal yourself.
Yeah,
That is
if
what
if I
Purium
took
did.
that and sat on the couch and did nothing, I probably wouldn't have healed because I needed the yoga too,
Exactly.
and I needed the community too, and I needed
Yep.
the better environment too, and I needed yeah, so like yeah, for
Yep.
sure.
I appreciate you continuing to share that. I just from a logistics standpoint, you tell your story very well
Thank you.
as somebody who speaks. So I want to say that because, a lot of people are like, "Oh my goodness, I so enjoyed hearing your story." But as somebody who talks and listens for a living, it's nice to hear someone who doesn't go for 10 hours to get to one point. Like you give us a lot of important pieces and some details, but not all the superfluous stuff that, like, it's like when I was 5 years old and I went to the circus and this happened. That has nothing to do with your actual full journey. It might have a little piece, but it's not the big piece. So I appreciate that because those are the stories that catch attention, are the ones that really speak to people on that soul level, that connection level. Is I can relate to that story because X, Y, and Z happened to him. And at 25, he got this diagnosis and then he's healing and he went on this journey. And here's the important points on that journey. And now here he is. And so if he can do it, I can do it too because I'm human too. And we're similar in that respect, sort of thing. So really appreciate that from you.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it. And even like a little bit what you were saying before, like the storytelling and story, just all the
Mm-hmm.
things about the story before, um, is it's not my first time sharing my story, right? Of course,
Yeah.
a few times with you guys, but in general, whatever we're doing, if you're practicing it, you're going to get better, right? If I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even trying to get better, I would just get better, right? But practice and watch others and try to improve as well, to
Yeah.
make it, yeah, not be super freaking boring and just yeah, you hear or whatever crazy run on, like sometimes, yeah, a story was just like, okay, where are you going? Oh, you went,
Yeah.
oh, I'm lost. Oh, you're going back. Okay, what are you talking about now? Just like, so like, yeah, not that, or just little things like it's
Yeah.
not saying or I say too much sometimes, or I say like too much because like I don't know. And yeah, so little things like that and just making improvements.
Yeah.
But even like the timing, like this I knew was like a little bit longer, so I try to be smarter. Like I could be a little bit more detailed in some areas.
Mm.
And then like Jules was like, share your story in 1 minute. I could do that too, like if I have to,
Yeah.
So like, but I've actually had practice, like, can I do a 2 minute story? Can I do a 1 minute story? Can I do a, like, so I actually, have practiced that at times.
Yeah. Well, it shows. So congratulations. Good job.
Always improving. Yeah, always improving. And this is also for me too, like to improve, like it
Oh,
also, like
absolutely.
in a way, like help sharing, but also like I believe like when we're doing or teaching, often we're it's one of the best ways to learn, in general too. You
Plus,
probably
the
like
in
learn a
person.
lot when you're doing your thing, right?
Yes. Yes. Did you know my my patients are one of the biggest lessons for me ever is when I hear their stories, I learn something from it. And so I appreciate, as I've told you earlier, before anybody else joined, sorry, Nicole. But yeah, listening to people's stories is that there's nothing to compare to it, really.
You know, even though it might seem easy for me right now, it took me maybe like 2 years after
Mm.
feeling better to share my story.
Well, you were healing.
Yeah.
You were still healing. There's,
After I felt better, like, because it's
yeah,
like, like, not everyone shares their story, like
yeah,
some people hold it in or whatever, right? You would say you have a traumatic experience, like, doesn't mean you have to share it. Some
yeah,
people don't, right? They hold it in forever, right? And,
yeah.
like, even as just a small example, I mean, it doesn't bother me anymore. I'm over it, but just a small example, like, even with like let's say dating, for example, dating a girl,
Mm.
right? One girl said to me as an example, like I'm fine, it's not a big deal, right? But as an example, right, she's like, oh, is it contagious what you have? Because
Oh my gosh.
out of lack of understanding, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Hmm.
Understand that, because my mindset before, like, what is a disease? You think, like, if you know nothing, like, oh, that person has a disease or they had a disease,
Yep.
like, oh my God, if you just don't know anything, like, I can get it,
Hmm.
to an extent, but also it's like that's, a layer of why some people don't share
Hmm.
certain things, like they don't want whatever.
Yep.
Um, and then another layer, of course, I'm sharing in the public, so it's like that's the whole nother layer of like, okay, am I gonna
Oh my goodness. Yes.
so it was hard, but what I learned, am still growing and still learning and still helping people. I can still feel like it's the beginning to an extent, still young for sure. And I've helped a lot of people already, but I feel like there's a lot more. That's what I really, really learned is like, whoa,
Yeah.
there's so many people with autoimmune that are suffering so
Hmm.
bad. And I
Oh my
really,
goodness,
and
so
I've
many.
already helped so many, and I believe like there's so many more that could be helped. And it's like, I don't know, it's becoming like the number of cases of autoimmune, I think is becoming more than like all
Oh,
the
it's
other,
terrible.
than the cancers and the diabetes, like I
Yeah.
think becoming more than those or something like that.
So there's some functional medicine research, actually quite a bit of functional medicine research that has come out in the last 7 to 10 years. Um, Obviously, my chiropractor network that I have here are all functional medicine trained because I lucked out on my system here. But they've been looking at, so, cancer. We all know what cancer is. Over 50% of our population will probably get it or die from complications from it or something. But what functional medicine doctors are starting to look at is they look at the whole body system processing. And they say every single person, they looked at 5 different kinds of cancer, the most common ones. And they found every single person in their 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s that uh, start having to do chemo or radiation or those sorts of things for those cancers or who end up dying from them had precursors in their late 30s. So after about 37 to maybe around like 55 or 60, they all had high blood pressure, some sort of diabetes, either the pill one or the insulin injection one. And there's two other things that they had that are like some of the most common average everyday diseases that people take an everyday medication for in the United States. Like everybody takes medication for blood pressure. Everybody takes medication for all of that stuff. I think, oh, it was cholesterol. Cholesterol was one of the other big ticket ones. I mean, it was the high bad cholesterol and the low good cholesterol. And functional medicine in the last 7 to 10 years has started going. So if everybody has that beforehand, and then on top of that, overweightness or obesity mixed in there, these must all be, instead of actual diseases themselves, these are precursor symptoms to cancer, to developing a cancer disease. And so far, the research has been pretty positive on trying to reverse all of that with lifestyle, diet, and stress management changes. Actually improves the likelihood that people don't develop a severe, like stage 4 something. So, just interesting research that backs this concept that just because you have something that,
Yeah,
okay, so like,
I even well, even that kind of research was part of what was a
mm-hmm,
huge inspiration to me, that kind of stuff, like the
right?
people that are looking up that stuff, like I watched so much of that stuff before I was like, okay, I definitely seen enough to like it makes a lot of sense. But I mean, I'm always watching more stuff like that. Like there's so
Mm-hmm,
many people on YouTube that are like so like yeah, like they're just so looking into that stuff so well,
mm-hmm,
will share it, the information so well. And I'm always fascinated definitely with that, like all the functional medicine type of people. And that I mean that's I have such a huge open mind for it all.
mm-hmm.
And I think it's all important, all the everything from the juicing has all its important values,
Yeah.
and I even like I really view Purium as like a form of juicing in a lot of ways, just the
Mm-hmm.
way that they juice the whole plant for most of the greens, you know. And so but yeah, I mean all the benefits there, from all the fruits to, just the yeah, just the way we're designed, like looking at so
Yep.
much of that stuff, like the human design, the biology, uh,
Mm-hmm.
from even like not every plant is studied or everything is studied, but I've I I like looking at a lot of the ones that are have been studied, and looking into that,
Yeah.
like there's quite a few, like the one I was saying, the astaxanthin one, for example, like the algae
Mm-hmm.
one is a really well studied one, so you could look up,
Mm-hmm.
like it has really good research on it. Where not everything is, you're not going to find like really great research on apples, for example,
No.
watermelons, although we know they're great. It's just there isn't like scientific studies backing
Mm-hmm.
it up because I mean there's many reasons, but one of the big reasons is mostly money. There isn't an investment. There's no logical investment to invest money into apples or watermelon research
Yeah.
as an example, because you're not going to
It's
make a
sad.
profit off of it. Whereas the only reason they did the astaxanthin or other ones or tart cherry or other things,
Mm-hmm.
other well-studied ones, is oftentimes it's because they're looking and they have the money because it's going in the route of becoming a pharmaceutical or part of the pharmaceutical. Because a
Yep.
lot of the pharmaceutical stuff originated with plant medicine and it just, lost
Yes.
its way, adding petroleum and all these other things or whatever, right? But yeah, I mean, yeah, like so that's why like that one's well studied. There are I part of the reason why some of the plants are well studied is because they are part of
Yeah.
the pharmaceutical industry now, or we're going to be at some point.
Well, it's like even when you do get studies that look at healthy things like that, like there's one study that looked at 3-day juice cleanses. Well, what nobody knows if you've never done a juice cleanse is you need to look at several different options. So, to study anecdotally, because we all know how this works on the internet, you read a full
There's like a
scientific
survey or a
study.
poll they do sometimes. They're like, look
Yeah.
at this study, and it was like a poll, like a yes or no question. So you're like, what?
So this one, crazy enough, was actually a legitimate scientific research paper. Like it had like the whole like the beginning, the research overview, the data, the metrics, the analysis, the discussion, the closure, the you know all the links to all the articles they use. Legitimate, like as far as like all of that works, legitimate study. Oh, hello, kitten. Who are you? I don't know you. She had a cat come up and sniff my foot, and I have no idea who this cat is. She's very sweet. I've seen her before. Um, but so this study essentially said, so anytime the news takes a research article, they go, oh, we need a snippet. We need an anecdotal statement that's going to catch everybody's attention. So, of course, this study on 3-day juice cleanses said after 3 days, the bad bacteria in your mouth increases. So that was the anecdotal statement that they threw across the news. That even in just, but the way that they worded it was amazing. It's even in just 3 days, juice cleanses can screw up the bacteria in your mouth. And I'm like, well, of course it can, because you're drinking more fruit juice. So you need to just be mindful of your oral health. Nobody tells you that your tongue is one of the primary places that you detox from. So you need to be scraping your tongue at least 2 times a day. Um, and then it's also like, and nobody bothers to tell you, oh, whenever you are first detoxing and cleansing, your body is getting rid of all the bad stuff. So you're going to have an overgrowth at first while your body flushes out stored toxins, stored foods sources for this bacteria. Because then if you look at the other study that's been posted, it said that after a 10-day juice cleanse, they noticed a far lower trend in bad gut bacteria and a massive spike in the two primary good gut bacteria in the intestines. But nobody talks about that when they want to talk about how in a 3-day juice cleanse, your plaque grew extra, Kevin.
Yeah, no, I think I mean what I noticed is almost anything that's positive is gonna be spun in a way that's negative on
Mm-hmm.
mainstream or social media oftentimes,
Yep.
And like even I seen like stuff like that for sure. I may have even seen that one.
Yeah.
But the another kind of, kind of negative or slander one like that that maybe you've seen that's is fairly popular.
Mm.
It's like this raw fruitarian or whatever that died young or something like that,
Oh, the one that had an eating disorder.
Yeah, and
Yes.
so you know what I'm talking about. And
Yes, I
so,
do.
but that example, right, is one that, they'll use and highlight
Mm-hmm.
and try to bring bring something good down, right? And
Yep.
using, this story and making, making it made up, right? Kind of what you're talking about,
Yeah.
making or not saying the whole truth or whatever, right? Making up lies and stuff like that. And also kind of what you're saying is like, oh yeah, but what they won't tell you is like, the hundreds of thousands of people, dying from, eating, this other way. To be
Yeah.
like, you pick this one person,
Seriously.
there's one random person or whatever, right? So like, yeah, it's like I just started see it's just after seeing it so because that's one example
Mm-hmm.
of so many. If you're like after so many years now, like I just start it just yeah, it's just like almost like not almost nothing surprises me now. Like these whatever
Yeah.
crazy stories or a crazy negative study, and also nothing deters me anymore. Like I feel like I've seen enough and I know
Yeah.
enough. I've collected enough evidence that I don't need to see all the negative sides anymore,
Yeah.
My personal opinion. That is where I'm at. Everyone is different, and I needed to see a lot of stuff to come up with how I feel and
Yeah.
believe now, and I'm grateful that I did, but I feel like I've seen enough now to know.
Hmm.
And now I'm just like, yeah, so something's like just like so negative about my lifestyle. I'm just like, I don't care about that, or
Yep.
if I want to look into it, I'll find, yeah, it's a like not true, like that story. I might look into it for a little bit and be like, find out, oh, this is what happened, and what, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
also working, how we work with people with health and help people with health issues and stuff like that. Like for me, like now, whatever health issue I see, no matter whatever lifestyle they're eating, I feel like I can help it in my mind.
Yeah.
So when I see that, I'm not like, oh shoot, I might be doing something wrong. I'm like, oh, I wish I could talk to them and help them. That's more what I think.
Yeah. And even if I don't know something, it's just like, well, let me just tell you what I know worked for me. You can see which piece works for you. Like my best friend, she's not a vegan. She never will be. She eats a lot of fruits and vegetables. She's made majority plant-based, but they still do chicken, they still do beef, they still do all that stuff. She and her husband are super healthy, but when she gets sick, she and I still lean on each other. So she'll make a suggestion and say, like, she's the one who initially started pushing, well, if you're going to do long-term juice cleanses a few years ago, she said, you need to have a fat in there somewhere. And I was like poo-pooing on that. I was like, no, I'm fine, blah, blah, blah. And then here we are with Jules' situation. And I'm like, yeah, definitely need to add a fat. Jana was right. I was wrong. I can admit to that. We're good. I'll tell her later. And I told her, and she was like, yeah, I know. And I was like, I know, shut up. Um, but that's our friendship. But it's just like she may not do everything exactly the way that I do it, but there's core pieces that can still make her life better and that she can have better health with. And I just, even if what I say or recommend doesn't line up with one person's thing, that doesn't mean that something you tell them might not help. Or, maybe they do need more than just like juice. A gentle cleanse or detox may be more appropriate. One of the big things I've learned in the last 5 years of my healing journey is don't put yourself in a healing crisis. Don't do it if you can help it. Like those suck. They can last for weeks or months. Just, just listen, be intuitive to your body and your soul and your spirit, and pay attention to when your body says enough's enough. Because could I still be juicing right now and be like 35, 40 days in? Sure. But my body at day 17 said, you need to stop this because we're not losing any weight or doing anything else until you stop. And the minute I stopped, I'm perfectly fine. My body said, we need to slow down. And whereas when I was juicing, it said, no, I don't want to talk about emotions with this NET chiropractor that I see. This time it said, yes, we're definitely talking about all the emotions today. And I released like 4 or 5 different things today and literally don't have pain in this one part of my lower back that I almost always have pain in. So, yeah, it's just, you
Yeah, I
have to
feel
be
you.
fluid with some of this stuff. It's not cut and dry, one size fits all. And our society wants us to do that because that monetizes. It makes
Yeah,
money.
for sure. Even like for sure, like even when I first started, like just helping people in general, or trying to help people in the beginning, I was like just trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to help. I was like, I want to help. I just somehow, you know, once I started learning some stuff and feeling better, because like my mom was on 25 medications and she was like the first
Yeah.
person I started helping, right? But like even other people, and yeah, I was more like, yeah, like more rigid or more like this way, this is the only way, kind of not kind of
Yeah.
thing. Because like that's all that I knew. Like I didn't have that much experience helping people in like different ways and stuff. And like I was just going, yeah, just based on what worked for me, right? And like because like the first major change for me was going vegan. But
Yep.
then like, and so that's what I thought was like the number one thing, right? But yeah, as I grew and shifted and changed, yeah, it's not. I don't even look. I look at just add some good stuff in. Like if we don't even talk
Hmm.
about you're vegan this or
Yeah.
not vegan this or this that or any diet. No, I don't talk about diet. Or you see how my presentation is. It's not about this
Yeah.
diet or that diet or you're on juice or you're on a fruitarian or you're on a vegan or not. It's just you just add some stuff in now and see how you feel. And that's the same for Jules. Just add some stuff in, see how you feel, or whoever,
Yeah.
right? And just in general, right? And same for you, just the juice or however you do it, right? But
Yep.
similarly, yeah, it isn't about yeah, that kind of yeah, you're vegan or you're not vegan. And I learned that
Yeah.
too. And that helped me help more people. once I got better at that, like I was able to help you. My friend, like who you're describing, I have a friend like
Yeah.
who like I wasn't helping them how I was before, but once I kind of got shifted and got a little bit better, like
Mhm.
I helped them a lot, and she couldn't have a baby. I helped her have a baby with my help,
That's awesome.
with Purium and health products and stuff like that, you
Yeah.
know. And so and yeah, she has a really, great healthy. He's 3 now, so and
Oh,
I probably wouldn't have
I
helped
love
her,
that.
and she probably wouldn't have got healthy, probably, if I didn't change,
Yeah.
because I was more yeah, I could understand why someone wouldn't want to approach me before. I was more rigid, you know.
And I was too when I went to get my master's because I worked for 4 years as an artist for a civil engineering firm, and I went back to grad school when I was 26 for counseling. So like I had a whole different career plan. And then I did 3.5 years, finished that degree. But one of the best things I ever did, I went into counseling because of my own mental health issues. I've been hospitalized for a suicide attempt. There's a whole story behind that later on. But essentially decided I want to learn what's wrong with me so I can help with others. So that was the reason I went into it. But that whole program, one of the biggest takeaways I ever got, because you can learn all the techniques, you can learn like, oh, cognitive behavioral therapy, or oh, I'm going to do this or this or this. At the end of the day, it's about how do I provide unconditional positive regard for people when they meet with me. So no judgment, no condemnation, no damnation to hell. You're not a terrible person just because your life looks different than mine. How do I provide that unconditional positive regard, no judgment, and essentially a therapist's goal is to be the witness to what their client says and a sounding board for helping that client or that person figure out how to heal themselves or how to take care of themselves or do things themselves, empowering them to do stuff themselves. And obviously, getting stuck in our medical system means that I learned all the unhealthy ways that counseling is used, but also got to see some really good ways that that was used. And one of those that's really helped me is to understand just because something works really well for my body chemistry, my body type, where I'm from, what I deal with, doesn't mean it works for everybody else exactly the same. There's always going to be that one person that oh, this works for everybody. There's going to be that one person that doesn't work for it all. And if there's that one person, then that means there's other people. So listening to the barriers and the issues that people have helps me understand whether or not what I'm telling them or what I'm talking about is going to work for them or if it's even something they're willing to work with. So it's just a really careful listening to language and, body cues and things like that. But
Yeah,
that's
and
been
then
really helpful with me.
yeah, and ideally, like what happened for me and maybe for you is when you get into the situation where like they say this doesn't work for this person, and you're like maybe you feel
Mm-hmm.
like at a roadblock, right? You're like, shoot, like this is what usually works, right? Then you like
Mm-hmm.
start to become maybe more resourceful or look up more information or find something else, right? And you're like,
Yep.
hey, there's something else, or I have something else, now that maybe could help, in that situation, right? And then you
Yep.
start like you start, I almost like, let's say, yeah, if I have one way that doesn't work, I might have two or three other ways, for that
Yep.
same kind of thing, but like definitely not before. Like before, yeah, I definitely had to learn, and that's why I realized I have to stay open-minded, because like
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely so much more. And like when in the plant world, like there's like 20,000, in my mind there's like 20,000 plants, and they all like do
Yep.
so many amazing things. And like it seems like every day I learn about some other cool plant that's doing something else that's pretty cool, that or have some other kind of
Yep.
healing property or whatever, and so it's just like, yeah, like you go to the grocery store and you might be like, let's say 10 fruits and 10 veggies as an example,
Yep.
right? And that might be all that you know. But like we know, or we know now like so much more. But like growing up, the only Chinese food place, the only thing I thought Chinese food was Panda Express. That's all that
Right.
it was Chinese food, and like then you travel lots of other places, you realize there's lots of other kinds of Chinese food. I went
Yes,
to China,
there
I
is.
was like, there's no Panda Expresses there.
There is zero. I have a friend who lived for years. She's a runs a international journal, and she lived for years in Beijing. And she's like, Chinese food is not what America serves. It's not at all. And I'm like, that's fair. So
Yeah,
yeah.
not even one thing, maybe the rice.
No, like the rice is the only thing, and even then, it's like, are we eating the right rice at this
It's
point?
not the same, yeah, just different rice. I definitely,
We like to Americanize everything here, don't we?
Yeah, but it's good. Like if I mean, if you have opportunities, then it helps. It just helps your perspective. Like
Yeah.
in being in America, I think there's only five different options for breakfast, right? Traveling to so many different
Yes.
places, I'm like, wait a minute, there's like 100,000 different things for breakfast.
Oh my goodness. I mean, England, the United Kingdom made me so happy when I realized that you could have tomatoes for breakfast. I was like, oh, that's a thing.
I just realized like anything now, like well now that
Yeah.
helped me be like fruit could be breakfast, a green juice could be a breakfast, you know.
I'll eat potatoes for breakfast.
I
Like,
mean, well,
awesome.
that is closer to us, but yeah, I mean, but yeah,
It is. Well, I was going to say I'd eat asparagus for breakfast, but then you've got hollandaise. So I guess asparagus is good with that. But man, I don't know. Roast, I don't know. Cook spinach. I don't know. I'll eat just about anything for breakfast.
I feel you. All right, well, it's been great
Alrighty. Yes.
having
Thank
you
you so
chatting today.
much.
And next week, ideally, we could do someone else or more more popcorn story style or whatever. But like stories
I'm
only.
great with either. I love the storytelling, so I'm good with it.
All right, well, see you next Wednesday or and sooner probably, but at the
I
maybe next Wednesday.
I hope to be there. All
All
right. Thanks,
right,
Kevin.
take care, bye.
Bye.